Hi, it's Steve Hargadon, and this is the 7th Annual Global Education Conference. It is 2016, and we're in the first day, and this is our second keynote. Terry Smith is here. Terry, welcome.
Great to be here, Steve.
Sure appreciate you being here. You can hear a little bit of breathing through your mic. You may want to move it slightly outward. Thanks to our sponsors and supporters, VIF, Google, TES, IRN. We so appreciate all of these organizations. Thanks to them, this is a free conference, and please let them know you appreciate what they've done. This is your turn to indicate on the map where you're participating from. Look to the left of the map, click on the star icon, and you're going to click on the map. Maybe put a note in the chat as well, where you're located, the time, the temperature. I'm not seeing any other indicators. So it's to the left of the map, it's the star icon, and I wonder if my screen's just not refreshing. There we go. Okie doke. And I'm going to move forward, but keep those notes going in the chat.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, looks like everything's working. Looks like all the
Terry,
slides are here. Well, welcome everybody. I want to thank you for coming to this presentation. I really want to thank you for coming to this Global Education Conference. Today you're going to get many messages about global education, and I hope you're going to, and over the next few days as well, I hope you can take advantage of these opportunities and attend as many sessions as you can. You know, make a few new friends, encounter a few thought-provoking topics, and pick up some ideas for things in your own practice. That's why I'm here. You know, I love connecting with everybody. So most presenters start off telling you a little bit about who they are and what's going on. So the guy in the red shirt is not me. That is a young elementary student where I spend a lot of my time in my work. I'm in higher education. That would be teacher education. I teach science and social studies, and I also have student teachers out in area classrooms. And so I spend a lot of time in the elementary schools trying to help my students do more project-based learning, do more learning, and especially learning that is involved with international projects and connecting to the world. I'm in Radford, Virginia. You can see a little photo right here. Things look very much like this right now. It's a beautiful sunny day. We're deep into fall. And this is a campus of about 10,000 students. And I've been here for a couple of years. I wanted to backtrack a little and tell you that before being in higher ed, that I spent 14 years in the elementary classroom teaching a number of different grade levels, but always using project-based learning. So I got to do that in Texas, and I got to do that in Illinois, Hannibal, Missouri, and now in Virginia. So I have an interesting perspective of my own, you know, about how things should be happening in the United States. Besides that, the other parts about me is on a couple of occasions I've taken little kids to Taiwan on global adventures to meet students with which they had participated in internet projects. Spent a good bit of time over there playing around with Chinese and touring. And then the other thing I do aside from this stuff is I run a couple of global projects. And one of them is through an organization called Kidlink. And by the way, I'll throw out a plug here. If you're looking to be a part of an international organization of volunteer teachers, get in touch with me. We've got projects you can help work on, maybe run one of your own. That's in Kidlink Association. And then that's students from around the world and teachers from Italy and Sweden and Italy, South Africa, Malaysia, just all over the place, and Australia also. So we would love to have some new people join us on that. The other project I run is one I'll be talking about today, and it fits the little character you can see in this picture here with me. It's a pre-K through 6 project, and as I show you the project, I'm going to try and help point out the ways that you can see how we're approaching the foundations for global awareness and what we call global competencies, and developing new perspectives and starting out with little kids and getting that job done. And you see a National Geographic sign right there. Well, I'm associated with National Geographic as part of their teacher education certification program, and that's all about finding teachers, whether they're pre-service or whether they are in the classroom, and helping them use all different kinds of tools to meet like-minded educators and to figure out what it is, what's going on with this world, what's the human story, you know, what are the critical species, what's going on with the science of global warming, to connect with all these people and further this whole global education message just a little bit better. All right, so that's a bunch of stuff about me and about what I do, and I'm going to jump on this next page, and this is where we really want to take some time and thank these two. Lucy and Steve, I've only met them once, two amazingly wonderful people who are responsible for everything that's going on here right now, all the things we're doing. They've posed questions that are important, that we all need to be answering. They've created venues, and they've created communities, places for us to come, places for us to be. And so if you can hear me right now, that's me applauding these two people. And actually, like I said, I've only met them once, and that's once is not enough. So hopefully we'll run into each other again at some other point. And notice at the top of the screen, hashtag GlobalEd16 if you're out there twittering. Okay. So I want to ask this question: why are we here? You know, I always like to know the answer. Why are we here? What is it about being globally connected that attracts people, you know, in the first place? And part of what I think about that is the words I'm adding here, that this is a conference based on really coming together. And it's kind of a cliche, but, you know, given right now the divisive nature of what's gone on with the USA elections and the way we look at people and the way people seem to appear in the media, the different way they look, the different way they talk, and the different way that some of our leaders and different people talk about them. We don't want our children thinking and believing that way. So I really think that this year's conference is even more important based on what's going on right now, that we need this venue for pointing out the connections that need to be made. And so I look forward to that being part of it. So global education is about connecting. And here are some big ideas that I hope will come out as we move forward. I'm going to show you a lot of pictures of kids doing a lot of stuff as we move forward here. But I think that we're here because we're open to opportunities and we're open to ideas. And in fact, we like to engage with others. You know, we don't want any walls in front of us. We want to engage with other people. And maybe that's because we value these multiple perspectives. You know, we don't just believe that our own perspective, you know, is the end game. We want to know, what do other people think? What can we build from those things? So here we are. We're at the conference, and I think with it, we're going to show that we want to engage and learn with the world, and we really want to connect. And if you're like me, you never know what's going to happen if you get into this global education stuff. You take a lot of risks, and you meet people, things happen, and everything gets better and better and better from my perspective. So I know it's all worthwhile. And I want to point out the sign I have at the top of my slides that says "Learning with the World." I'm going to get into that in this next couple of pages here. These are some quick little signs to point out the different things going on right now that occupy my time. You see World Savvy up here, and you see the Asia Center for Global Education and the GTE, Global Teacher Education. We see the Future Comes First, the Teachers College down below. So we're seeing organizations that unite us, organizations that do things like help us if we want to acquire a certificate and further our learning and our experience, we can do that. We see organizations that are just full-fledged conferences, like you see the red apple in the middle of the picture. That's our recent conference we had at Radford, our first global education conference, and it was just incredible. Real people coming together face-to-face. Toward the right-hand side of the screen, you see my favorite part of this whole story, and that's projects. I think that's really where it all begins, getting people involved in projects. And I'm pointing out here the Global Monster Project. I'm pointing out the National Geographic program where we can connect our educators. If you've never tried the Vendy Globe project, that's the first one I ever did years ago. It's a sailboat race around the world, and it's an incredible way to connect your students with all sorts of integrated learning. So there's for those of you visual learners, I'm showing you this, and now for you textual learners, throw it into a few charts or into a few columns here. And you see I have project learning, and I list a number of places that you can connect with projects, but there are thousands more. And to me, the projects build and go into the communities where we see National Geographic, or if you're in Europe, you know about e-twinning. You possibly know about Outreach World or Taking It Global or some other communities. For global competency, we have a number of amazing foundations and organizations that help us accomplish that. If we don't know how to go about it, if we're not already just out there doing things. And then I want to throw teacher education in there as well to point out that there are universities that are taking this seriously, and we're trying to find ways to help our brand new teachers understand how to do this and why it matters. And you see the blue arrow at the bottom of the screen. Go there. Maybe someone will put that on the screen. Okay, yeah, tons of projects there, tons of things you can get involved with. Create your own, or get your students or your classes, or just spread the word on that. So that's looking at those two facets. And I want to bring this in. When I do National Geographic presentations, I always use this graphic because it works so well, and it works well for little kids as well as teachers, just pointing out the places we live. You know, are we centered in our local area? Do we even understand our regions? Do we know our impact out in the global areas? So if we're even going to use this term global education, I think we really have to be thinking about really just the incredible, beautiful complexities that our world is all about. I mentioned terms a minute ago like the human story, or critical species, or new frontiers. And this is where you take sort of an explorer's look at the world. And once again, that's sort of an identity that helps us become more globally oriented. So let's go on from here. And let's bring Yang Zhao into this. And many of you know of Yang Zhao, and he's a person who I've read so much of his stuff. And I end up quoting him, and I'm sure plagiarizing him a lot without even realizing it. But he's been pointing out in a number of different ways why it is so valuable that our children learn about the world. If we're going to be globalized, they need to be able to act and be a part of that world. So Yang Zhao has several really good books out there that I'd recommend people have a look at. And then these two, okay, back to the original Al Gore. His phrase is what I have at the top of my screen up here, learning with the world, from his book, The Future. And he talks about, rather than being places where students learn about the world, that these schools are becoming places where students can learn with the world. And, you know, that's a nuance, but I think it's really important that we don't put the world on the text page or on the web page, or it's something we study and think about and relate. It's better if we can learn with the world about the world. And Julie Lindsay, have her photo right here. She has a great new book out called The Global Educator, and she reflects a lot of different things from this very same thing. I've heard her use the very same phrase about learning with the world, and especially her idea that we all should really be aware of that we really do not need to leave home to be global. There are so many ways to do this. I mean, look what we're doing right now, just in this venue that we're in right now. So these are the things. These are some of the thinkers that help support what I'm doing and help me clarify my own thinking about what is this global awareness thing. Okay, and then one last thing, I'd recommend going to the Longview Foundation, downloading this small booklet called The Imperative for Change, and it just points out, I think, some of the mistakes we're making in education, focusing so much on specific skills and not focusing on where those skills will actually be used. And that's just an ongoing problem of putting things in silos or isolating things. And if we can have this global perspective and global awareness, we'll see where we're going to use our math, where we're going to use our science, why does our literacy matter, how does our literacy connect. So Longview Foundation has some great stuff you can read. Go download that booklet, that's free. Now jumping into what I want to use as my transporter, my vehicle for this global education thing, is this project I've been running for a number of years called the Global Monster Project. And for me, we all have our own little place, and projects is what I consider my own little place. I want to see people do things, get their hands into things, get kids involved, and make and do things. So it's sort of like the maker movement. It's a little bit of STEM, lots of different things going on here. The Monster Project this year, 2016, our makers came from the United States. As you can see in the list, Argentina, Brazil, Peru, Russia. First time for Peru. Russia, England, Canada, and Myanmar. And I might have left, I left Thailand off there, so Thailand's also in that group here. Our objectives, you can see what our #1 objective is. I actually should put have fun right up front, because that's really what we do. But it's global awareness. And we do that through collaboration. We do that through tons of communication, using lots of different kinds of technologies that fit the elementary classroom. We do a lot of sharing of media, and we make a lot of friends. And if I would have, in my thinker list, if I'd had Homa Tavangar, she would have been one to let you know that making friends is how we start this whole thing. It's about making friends, and that's a great metaphor for kids to begin this global awareness process. So academics, I leave that up to the teacher, but I recommend lots of different things we do in the project. You can integrate geography, you can work on map skills, literacy, there's tons of math, there's history involved, there's plenty of foreign language, culture is everywhere, and art can be your foundation for building and making things come together. We could actually add engineering in here, as you'll see as we move forward. And notice, I'd like to say that the Global Monster Project is it's a starter project. It's a way for a brand new teacher, even a student teacher, to jump right in and begin interacting with veteran teachers who are already out there in the community, doing things, sharing things, and it's so much better than just reading about it as things you should be doing or a top 10 list, because you connect with these people and you see what they're doing, and you can understand they're doing what you do. You know, you're talking to someone in your group, your affinity group. Okay. So the Monster Project. If you want to get in the Monster Project, you go to this website. And this is, I'm not going to take you to any websites today, just want to show you some screen caps because I don't want to deal with the failing internet, as it often does. So if you go to the main web page, this is what you'll see on the left side, you can find out who's in the project. Every class sends in a bio, information about your school. You can see when it starts, what are the dates and what are the activities. You can see monster photos from the past, stories and media, lots of artifacts. You can see that we have media back to 2002. We have photos back to the year 2000. So anyone wanting to figure out how this thing works, you can look through some of these links and you can see how it's progressed over time. You can see how the technology has grown and become more sophisticated through this sort of a diary. On the right-hand side of the page at the top, I've got a little sign that says STEM theme, and that's important for providing something for our students to understand how might they take action in the world. And I'll point out to you as we get into this how one teacher's class was able to really take some action in this year's project. We have a closed Facebook group for teachers. We have learning and technology standards on here. We have the support of National Geographic, who promotes this on their Guru Learning site, and I have a link here especially cool. It's called MapMaker Interactive. So as these teachers all work with this global process, I want them to go try out this free tool that allows them to do all sorts of cool things, embedding videos and graphics and doing measurements and different things with the world, all in a free tool from National Geographic. So you'd start on this page and you figure a few things out. You join by basically sending in who you are, where you're from, what's your latitude and longitude, your temperature, things about your area. If you have a website or a blog or your Skype or Twitter IDs, you give us those, and all of that appears on the bio page. So you have this rich booklet of all of our participants that you can go through and begin making your own connections if you want. You send a photo of your class, and if you have a group of kids, for example, that pictures aren't allowed, I've had teachers make pie plates and put over their faces, make masks. I've had teachers send in shadows where kids will stand on the playground and we'll see a shadow of a group of teachers. But most all of the people that are involved in this project, they've cleared the way, and we just have tons and tons and tons of photos. So look at the bottom of this page. When you join the project, you complete this sentence at the bottom. This is our STEM theme. So that if your monster used science, technology, engineering, and math, how would he or she make our town or our world a better place to live? So they have to think about that and come up with that, and then we see how that plays out as they begin to build the monsters as the project moves forward. I thought I'd throw this out. I've got a bunch of different school photos, but I've just got 4 here to show you. This is really good for the kids. We can see that we can look at a school in Virginia. It's out in a rural area. This is not your typical public school. And there's a lot more freedom and flexibility at this school to do lots of different things. And it's sitting side by side with a much more, maybe industrial-looking school that's in Russia. This is in Achensk, Russia. And we drop down below that, and we could be in a resort. We could be in the tropical area in Myanmar. This is what this school looks like, Yangon International School. And then the bottom left, we're in a small part of England in Burnside, and this is a small school. I think there are about 60 students that go here. And this is a captured Google view. So you can, and on the participant pages, we'd like to, if you have it, put your street view coordinates, and then anyone can click on it, and they can go in front of your school. And as you know, scroll back and forth, look up and down, virtually walk right in front of your school. So this is, once again, defining that connection between the schools. This is where they go to school. Mrs. Sherman's in Virginia, Mrs. Jangarian's in Russia, Mr. Humble's in England, and Mrs. Stuhlman is in Myanmar. And we'll get to know these teachers as we go through the project. Okay, if you want to be in the monster project, you have to choose a monster part. I know you can't read this. I just want to show you that this is what the big chart looks like. From this big chart, and if you're a classroom, you would choose, I would like to have the head, or the eyes, or the earrings, or the eyebrows, or the tongue, the horns, the necklace, all the different parts that might make up our big friendly monster. Each classroom has 12 to 20 words they describe. All of those descriptions go into this chart that you're looking at right now. So once this chart is filled, all the participants take this chart, cut the squares apart, and they begin passing those out to classrooms and building the monster. So let's zoom in on this. Here's where the ears came from. They came from an incredible teacher, Jessica Sharvat. She's at the API school in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And here's a picture of her on the left with an Instagram thing she's put together. And here are her monster makers, and they describe the ears. Everybody in the project must make these ears this way. One's 20 centimeters, the other's 5 inches. One is square, the other's pink, crystal, and slimy, and has a blue tip. So they're very detailed, these descriptions. So there's a lot of reading and interpreting and then putting this into our different designs in the different schools. So every monster made by every classroom, and there are 60 monsters this year, all had to have these ears. The mouth came from one of our monster makers extraordinaire, Mr. Ferguson's 4th grade. You can see they really get into it. This is right outside the school. They have sawhorses and paper mache and wood struts, and they make these incredible giant 3D monster type structures that he actually ends up taking it into his local parade. They've designed the mouth. So I'll bump through this a little bit quickly here. The hair comes from Russia. This is our 3rd grade teacher, Lucine Jangarian. She's with her 3rd graders, but notice in the picture on the right, you'll see these are high school students. So she blended her high school students with her 3rd graders to help bring this project to life. And they described the hair, and they all worked on it together. And just by the way, Lucine actually traveled over to Radford, Virginia, and she was one of our international speakers in the Global Education Conference we had in August. It was wonderful to have her here and have her come and share what she knows about Russia. So here are her kids, big and little. Then here's our amazing Mr. Humble from Burnside, England. Here are a few of his students. They describe the eyes. Mr. Humble is a poet. He's an outdoorsman. He's a teacher. He's a little bit of everything. And as you can see, he is a superhero. And his kids love him. He's an amazing teacher, and he's a person I would recommend if you want to make a global connection. Go to his website. You can find that on the monster page. And if you'd like to play international chess, talk to Jonathan. He'll hook your classroom up with a game. The right knee, and I won't go through all the parts, just a few of these. The ones I think I just wanted you to see where they're all coming from. The right knee comes from Rio de Janeiro, from Project Favela. And if you know about what a favela, these are the slums of Rio de Janeiro. This is an after-school STEM class. This is the 2nd year that these students have been in it. The kids, the teachers who work in this class are volunteers from around the world. They come from various locations, and they go down to Rio, and they work with these students. And so this year, these kids have described the right knee. So everybody makes the right knee from Rio de Janeiro. Okay, so we've got the parts described from different places. Now we need a place for our community to be cooperating and communicating. So we use a closed Facebook group. Very popular, very easy thing to use these days. And here's an example of a teacher from Illinois sharing what's going on in her classroom. We have tons and tons of photos on this site. Show you another picture here. Garrett Ferguson. This is an interesting collection on this page because it shows us Garrett is talking to a Skype he did with a classroom in Minnesota where a school had more students than he has in his whole town. So the students in little tiny town of New Hampshire got to compare the scale of their school of their town to a school, a gigantic town up in Minnesota. On the other side of the page, we have a teacher this teacher in the top screen is Skyping with Garrett, and this teacher also Skyped with Virginia. So these two screens represent New Hampshire, Virginia, where else is going on here? What am I missing here? Illinois, all Skyping together, all different times connecting through the project, and none of these people knew each other until this time. Now, back to Mrs. Sharvat. She is suggesting to the group that there's this really, really interesting cultural holiday involving the river and something going on with a cultural event and something that the students in Taiwan have been doing for many years. So she wants to share that and get more students involved. So she creates questions. She creates a video project, posts that on the Facebook page, and she has reactions back from Massachusetts, back from Russia, and from Colorado. So, and we can see on the page here, this page has been seen by 50 teachers. So we know that 50 teachers in this instant saw what Jessica's sharing. And all they have to do is click on her, and they can work with her if they want, or if they don't want to work with her. But it's there. So the opportunity exists, all because it's sitting there in this Facebook group. Then just moving along, we can see our computer lab kids, third graders from Peru, who used MIT Scratch program. They decided they're going to do their monster in programming. And we don't have any third graders from any place else using that program that I know of as far as in this project. But up in the left-hand side, we have the kids from Russia. Their step one was to translate all of these English words and make this a part of what they do with their English learning. Kids from Wisconsin, we're seeing a little bit older kids. Kids from Washington State, showing the 3D things they're building. These are some of the monster accessories. So these kids are getting to know each other. Now we'll go from Facebook and just make it known that Twitter isn't just for politicians to use to throw insults around. Twitter can actually be used, and some of you already know this, by elementary classrooms. And we have Camille Jones over here from Washington State showing off her monster, and we have another teacher from Minnesota showing what her monster looks like on any given day, passing along their classroom Twitters. So what we did was we collected all the different teachers' Twitter accounts, put them in a Twitter list for those of you who use Twitter, so anybody now in the project can just click on the Twitter list, and they've got a stream of just those elementary classrooms and seeing what they're doing. So this is going to go beyond the Monster Project. This is going to go into Project Read Aloud. It's going to go into maybe the Landmark Project. It's going to go into other projects, and they now are seeing how easily they can use a Twitter list. So I recommend you give that a try if you haven't tried that yet. A couple more of these. Here's a couple of very young students looking up Dasha Kiryeyev's class in Russia. And then here's some bigger kids from Illinois. This is one of my student teachers I had back at Western Illinois University, Rebecca Gallico. She entered the Monster Project, and as you can imagine, this totally pleases me when my student teachers take this seriously and get involved and continue on with it. Now here's what I mentioned earlier. Taking action is part of what we expect in global competence. And Lori Toll was one of our also presenters at the Radford Global Education Conference last summer. She created a monster with her kids, and look at the name on here if you can read this, TVBCWSS. Now that stands for Teleport to Villages to Bring Clean Water and School Supplies. The idea being that she's already working in another project at the same time. And that project is the Africa Heartwood Project. It's a Change the World program. So she's working to help get a water well in Liberia. Her students now have started a fund raising money into which they're going to get that money and send that over to Liberia and now track the progress. So they're in touch with educators in Liberia and with this project, and so as a result of what they're doing, they're going to be able to take some action here. And we'll hear more about that as it goes forward. Lori's an incredible teacher, runs a thing called Full Circle Classrooms up in Newburyport, Massachusetts. Okay, so the Monster Project, it takes place in the month of October, basically. It starts at the beginning of October and it ends on Halloween, when all monsters are supposed to be coming into Monster Central. Here are just a few photos of what it looks like when the kids are building the monsters, when they're measuring and they're talking, and they're gathering their materials together, and they're painting, and they're gluing, and they're using hot glue guns, all sorts of different things. So these are kids from around the world. You're seeing pictures from Russia and pictures from the United States. A quick list of what the types of things that do go on. And these are at the creativity of the classroom teacher. So you can be a starter or you can be a veteran monster teacher. So the things we see happening are things like the design that has to go into making your monster, the videos, all the Skyping that goes on, the mapping, the way they interpret the words, the actual construction, lots of different measuring, very, very rich vocabulary, and a lot of negotiating and compromising going on here when kids have to make their parts come together. So you can't just make it any size, it's got to fit. You know, this whole project has to come together, has to work. And here's a great example from a previous year of what you would do to make sure that you have a connection. So on Halloween morning, this teacher connected up with a teacher in Russia, and as you can see, it's 8 a.m. in the USA, 9 p.m. in Russia. The Russian teacher, that's Larisa Tarasevich, longtime Monster Project teacher, is having a Halloween party at her house. So she's connecting her students from her house to an elementary fourth grade classroom here, in which all the students are dressed up as, as a giraffe and a witch and a goblin and a ghost and a building and all kinds of different things, but having a great use of a Skype session and lots of different questions prepared ahead of time. I know a lot of you use Skype. This came to be a great way for this teacher to point out the differences in time zones, to point out how when the world's turning, that it's morning in some parts of the world before it is in other parts of the world. But you can bring that to them. You can bring it to them directly. These kids are learning with the world at this moment. They're learning with the Russian students. Some of the map things they do, one thing I always recommend for the students to try out and the teachers is this thing from National Geographic called Mapmaker Interactive. It's totally free. You should go have a look at it if you haven't seen it before. You can embed videos, pictures, you can do measurements, you can chart things around the world with this. It's incredibly, really, really good. You can zoom in like you would with Google Earth. But what it enables teachers to do is to share their technology their skills as they're using this tool. This teacher shared her technology skills by taking, on her own, all the different people in the Monster Project, creating this map, and then creating a legend over here. So we can click on any of these teachers, go to their area, and if they've got a Google Street View, we can immediately start doing a Street View walk right in front of the schools. This is Christy up in Minnesota. Just so happens that Christy came down to the Radford Global Education Conference and presented also. So this is a nice collection of people who connect on the internet and people who've also, some we've connected with face-to-face. Another version of the map, a little smaller version, just putting up the monster pictures up on your classroom map, however that may be, and helping your students know where they came from. So using mapping skills, to me, is an incredibly important thing about global awareness, understanding what's going on in the world, where the parts of the world are. Here's a way some teachers shared some language skills. They took all different parts of the monster, put it in English, and this is 3 bilingual teachers from Illinois, and then they shared with all the rest of the project. Here's how you say eyes. Here's how you say ears. So with eyes we ojos, orejas, cuello, cabeza for the head. But to learn these and put it into a perspective as they're learning these things. So they're sharing the language skills and they're learning with the world at this moment. Let's share a little bit of student writing. This is second graders writing from Virginia. They're responding to what would their monsters do with STEM. What would they do? Would they use math? Would they build things? How would they make Christiansburg a better place? So this shares with other places what it looks like when our little kids do some of the writing they do associated with the Monster Project. Okay, now quickly here. Another screen cap. Halloween arrives, that's when all the monsters come in. If you go to the monster gallery, this is where we can see them. 3 to a line. We had 60 of these this year. You can see here we have one from right up the very first one's Mr. Humble. Then we have Russia. Then we have Minnesota. We've got Myanmar down here, Thailand, Illinois. A couple of screen caps. Just to show you, we have links on many of these pages. For example, the one on the top left here, this is our Scratch animation monster. If you click on that link, it'll take you to the MIT Scratch page, and you can watch how that monster came together, captured in a video of the parts being programmed and put together there. But this is where everybody comes to see everybody's monster. You go to this page, and if you click on any of these monsters, you get something like this. So you can get a close-up view of Dominique from Floyd, Virginia. And you can see that what Dominique's classroom looks like. There may be more pictures associated with it. You can see the pet bat sitting up here with this monster called Dominique. We can click on the monster from Russia and get a larger view of it. And by the way, each of the students has 1 vote. They're going to pick which monster, then which monster best fit the description, so they have to use their powers of evaluating to do this. Here's Mr. Heriberto from our first graders in Argentina, and Jennifer Verschure's class. You may have heard about her. She's a Microsoft educator working in all different ways around the world. And then from our Innovation STEM Academy from Wisconsin, a couple of different STEM schools up there, some of our older students, 6th graders, there might even be a 7th grader in this picture, but they create incredible structures, incredibly precise monsters following all the different descriptions in the big chart. A picture from Russia. We can see the monster from Russia, and the girls over here are some of our high schoolers, the ones that helped out our 3rd graders, and they built Smarty from Achinsk. This is the one I wanted to point out to you. This is a screen cap of a computer screen showing how their monster named Thomas was created with Scratch. And some of you may know about Thomas, but if you, you may know about Scratch, but if you don't, try and capture this link that's on the screen right here. It'll take you to the Scratch site and show you how this thing works. It's free. Elementary kids are using it. I've used it before with my 4th graders, but it's a nice introduction to just programming using plug-and-play modules that kids can figure out and kids can use. Yeah, our code is coming up, and this is a very perfect fit with that. So I'm heading toward a wrap-up here of where we're going, because I talk so fast I can go through this many slides at once. But back to being a globally competent teacher, and I advertise this as being foundational, that this is where it's a good way to get little kids started, but it's also a good way to get classroom teachers started. So if we are globally competent, these are some of the things we're doing, some of the things that we're creating an environment. We want diversity to be valued. We want engagement to be something valued. Integrating, we want to get these subjects pushed together, and we want to know how, if we're going to be talking something like STEM, we want to know how science and technology go together. We want to make sure that we are integrating, and at the same time, we're exploring the world. We want to have international conversations and partnerships going on. I want my student teachers seeking out, looking for other perspectives, but not just looking for them and talking about them with the people in their schools. I want them talking to people in other countries. I want them doing mystery Skypes. I want them joining the Monster Project and tons of other projects. Just really investigating the world and keeping that going. As you can see, Isamar is doing in the picture we showed you earlier. She's talking with Russia here. I think it was Lee Zeitz from the University of Northern Iowa. I got this quote here about opportunities. He says that the opportunities are out there, and it's just our challenge to go make the connections. It's there. We just have to decide how creative are we, how do we want to change our teaching, how do we want to learn with the world as well as learning about the world. And if we can do that, we can begin approaching this thing that we call being a globally competent teacher. And I think that's possible for all of us to do here. So with that, I end you with a few references here. I see I should have had some more in here. A picture of me with a prototype monster made by a special ed class a few years back. And I say thank you to you all. And yes, pre-K and K learners, the project is pre-K through 6. I say thank you, and if you have any questions or anything you'd like to interject or share, or if there's anything in the chat, I'm ready to take that. Thank you all very, very much.
Terry, this was excellent. Hi, it's Lucy. I just wanted to point out that this is a good presentation to show other graduate and undergraduate students, if you are in the room and you work with that population, of really practical, authentic projects that are easy to implement, I think. So thank you so much for doing this. There are a couple questions that are going on right now, and one of them is from Peggy George, and I'm not sure if you've addressed this because I've been in and out of the room. Is there just one definition of global competence? And I'm interested in this because I'm finding with our conference, when we ask people to put on to propose a session for the conference on globally minded teaching and learning, that very few people actually know what globally competent means. And I'm wondering, is there one definition, and in your opinion, and two, how do we make this a more standard thing that's known in education?
Well, I'm going to suggest that on Wednesday you attend a presentation here by Patty Talbot, Glenna Gustafson, and Brad Dizell. They're going to be talking about global competence in great detail, especially answering the question that you're asking right now. They'll be talking about it in terms of a global competency matrix, and it's sort of it's based on a global competence certificate. But the thing is, it deals with skills and behaviors and values and attitudes. And so I wouldn't say there's any particularly just quick and easy way to define this. I think it's something that comes together to help us want to engage with other people, to understand other cultures, because we're learning with them, because we're engaging with them, that we get our students understanding that. And we only do that by making these, by creating experiences for them. So I think if you go to look at the Asia Society, look at the Longview Foundation, you'll find some really good definitions of what global competence is. And I would say cherry pick out the ones that fit what you're doing. I'm trying to cherry pick the ones that I think fit for elementary students and for teachers that I am mentoring and helping at Radford to go out to schools and become elementary teachers.
That's great. Thank you for that information. Anyone else want to ask a question? Yusuf, you said you wanted to ask something in the chat. Go ahead and try and ask in the chat. You don't have to take the mic. Gail Lovely, who's a preeminent early childhood person, wants to know, are there particularly good projects for pre-K and K learners that you recommend?
Well, I recommend this one. I've had pre-K and K in it every single year, but no, I've been focusing in my area here, and I also do a middle school project, but I haven't looked at a lot of projects that are for really, really young kids specifically. But I bet we have people in this session right here, and definitely people at this conference that can help with that question.
The projects by Jen, I think, is the one that a lot of us refer younger learners to, because they're pretty simple, and the constraints are pretty concrete. One of the things that we should talk about, Terry, that you're part of too, while we're mentioning this, is I think it's hard to be a good project designer, and so it's nice when you can join something that's already existing, that's facilitated by somebody like you, and that's kind of the impetus behind something that I'm supposed to talk about, I think, today, the Great Global Project Challenge. We have started through the GEC a mechanism for getting people to design good projects and invite the public to participate. And I can put the link in the chat in a second. And Terry's one of the entries for it. Somebody linked to it earlier, I think. We have about 50 projects listed from all over the world that people are facilitating, and the deadline is December 1st to get your project in. You don't have to finish it or host it until between now and April. And then we have a grant for K-12 teachers who are participating in this to potentially win. So I just want to point that out, that I think there's an art to kind of designing something that's simple and authentic and keeping everybody organized and on track. And Terry, you seem to have that down. Do you want to add anything about kind of, you know, the tips that you would have for people who were designing their own projects?
Yeah, my first tip would be first go join a project and become comfortable with one, because that's a big step in itself, integrating it into your own classroom curriculum. So figure out how it works and what it looks like by joining one. And then if you are in a project, you might find an opening for you to help out with that project. Like I suggested, we're looking for some Kidlink Association volunteers. And if you see how they're working, and once you begin setting up your own little project, say for example, Lucy's a 5th grade teacher and we're in the same project, I might say, Lucy, let's set up email pals just between our group, our 2 classes, and let's read James and the Giant Peach. Now just the 2 of us working together, I'm going to go through some of the basic steps I would do in creating a bigger project. And once you can do it on a small scale, you start thinking about how you can add more to it, and then you have to create a space though. There has to be a place for people to come together, and that could be a Facebook group. It could be whatever you want it to be. You know, you can create different spaces. But that's what I would suggest. Join a project, volunteer, take a few risks, and see what happens. And that's how it goes.
One of the projects that I think is really popular with UF teachers is the Global Read Aloud. And I haven't looked at it for this year. I think it's going on right now. And typically it involves books from various reading levels. And I don't know if they're, Gail, if they're appropriate for preschool, kindergarten. I would think they would be. But what's nice about it is it's structured, but it's loosely structured, so teachers kind of come up with their own activities and that sort of thing. There is a space, I think, in Edmodo for them to work and to interact with each other. And it's differentiated because there are a couple different books that you can read depending on the level of your students. And what I love what you said earlier, too, about some of your projects is that the teachers have crossed, I don't know, pollinated them so that they can use certain artifacts in various kinds of projects. It's not just one project, one artifact. They're kind of integrating everything together to use in multiple projects. I thought that was kind of like the ultimate in sophistication with this, right? Do you want to talk about that a little bit more, about how how people have used your things in other ways?
Right, I think that's one of the strengths of the project, but it's also one of the things that scare people a lot. Many teachers want to join a project and they want to know what is the outcome. And that will mean, what are we all going to make? Well, here we've got a monster, so I can answer that question with, well, you have to build a monster. That's the main thing. But referring to what you just said, while you're doing that, you read all kinds of different literature, you share that, you create videos, your students build things, they make things, different things happen on the periphery of that. And that's where sometimes the teachers think they have to do all of these different things. But my veteran monster teachers do all those things. But my brand new teachers, I just want them to come in there, see what's going on, ask some questions, build a monster, and then sit down and go, whew, I did that. You know, now I've done it. Now I've done a global project. But so many of the creative part is, that's where, you know, every student teacher I have, I say, this is about you. You know, this is not about finding a teacher and cloning that teacher. This is about you. So the more creative you are, you know, as Ken Robinson would say, the more, if you bring out your own creativity, you're bringing out yourself, and you're going to make even better connections with yourself and your students.
Well put. Yusuf had a question about how do you do project-based learning in a private tutoring situation, or when you're only working with a small group of students? Is it a good idea to create projects in one-to-one learning situations in private tutoring? That's what he's asking.
Okay, that could be challenging and not. If he's tutoring one person, the monster project would be a little different too, but he or she might consider linking up to somebody else and creating their own group to make a monster. But for example, Lori Toll's class up at Full Circle, I believe she had 7 students, in that. We've had homeschoolers in here. We've definitely had small groups. At one middle school, we had about 150 kids building 3 monsters. You know, and so it ranges large and it can be small. So that's where I think the creativity comes in. How would you like to interact, and what could you do? And I would suggest that look at the project, talk to the moderator, and then I bet you can work something out.
That sounds good. Does anybody else have any other questions for Terry before we move on to the next sessions at the top of the hour? Anybody else? Anybody want to grab the mic? You're more than welcome to. I can turn on the mic for people, and you guys can just grab it if you'd like and chat. Last call for questions. So Terry, let us know, where can we find, if people want to get your slides or anything and take a look at all these great things that you've mentioned and dig into things a little bit further, is there some place that they can find your slides?
I think they can find them right here, can't they? When I upload them, I can make them available on this site right here. Is that right? Okay. Is that not true? And we're recording the session too, right? So you can come back and see the recording. Yeah. That's what I would suggest. Go to the Monster Project site too. Go look it up, and you'll see so much of what I've talked about. I could only talk about a little bit of things, give you little tiny samples. But that would be my answer to that. Are the slides available from GEC right here?
They'll see them, but they won't be. I'm not sure if they're downloadable. Peggy's always good at this. If you go to File and Save Whiteboard, maybe it will grab the slides.
I'll tell you what. If anybody just wants to email me, I could share those. Okay. I didn't have a preparation for that. I was assuming they were going to be available. But sure, I'll definitely share with anybody who wants them. Yeah,
it saves as a whiteboard. So you go to the File menu, everyone, Save Whiteboard, and save it as a PDF. And you can have them, and then you don't have to bug Terry. But Terry, if you do want to put your contact information in the chat, people can follow up with you afterwards as well. Okay. And your colleagues, do you want to tell us when your colleague sessions are this week too? So if people want more Radford University goodness, what day and time should they be looking for your colleagues?
Well, let's see. Is Patty still in here? Patty Talbot was in the room a minute ago. I think they're presenting on Wednesday. Oh, there she's got it. 2 o'clock on Wednesday. It represents a very creative effort, another thing we're trying to do here at Radford. So I'd recommend anyone to be at that presentation.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Terry, for being a keynote. We really appreciate your time and expertise, and I think you're going to have a bunch of more people who will want to join your project. So thank you very much. Everyone.
Okay, let me thank everybody here. We had 60 monsters this year, more than we've ever had. But before I finish anything, I want to thank you and Steve for making all of this possible. For everybody to just be able to pick up their computer and come in here and do all of this.
Isn't that fun? I just think it's like you guys are doing the legwork. We're just providing the vehicle, and I find it exciting, and I don't know why more people don't get excited about this. And as you started with in your presentation, I think there's even more urgency for promoting the kind of work that you all are doing, because this is the way of the future, you know. So thank you so much for doing this and for sharing your work, and we appreciate your time and professional generosity. So thank you.
Thank you, and so long for now.